Good evening. Welcome to California Today. I'm Liang Zhang. Here's a preview of some of today's stories. Over the weekend, the governor and a Republican challenger sat down to a televised debate. We'll hear what the two had to say. Speaking of the governor, one of the many new laws that he signed will check law enforcement applicants for alleged bias or hate group activities. Opponents say the law unfairly targets certain groups. And the lead attorney defending a cake decorator over same-sex wedding cake talks to NTD about the trial. That's after a judge ruled in favor of the decorator. Governor Gavin Newsom debated his opponent Brian Dahle over the weekend. Newsom vowed to serve a full 4-year term if he wins in November. That's amid speculation he will run for president in 2024. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on Sunday's debate.
The two candidates sat down for a civil, hour-long debate, calmly discussing issues Californians are facing and the solutions they each bring to the table.
As we speak, we're sending out billions and billions of dollars in inflation checks.
Newsom is expected to easily win re-election in November and has done little campaigning in California this year. Instead, he's fueled speculation that he might be considering a 2024 presidential run. That's because he's been running ads challenging Republican leaders in Florida and Texas, potential opponents in a presidential election.
I want to be clear, that was a yes on 4 more years.
Yes.
Dahle honed in on the economy and the cost of living, including high gas prices.
Californians are fleeing California for one reason, because they can't afford to live here, and he's out of touch with the everyday, hardworking, middle-class Californians. Now, yes, his elite friends can afford Teslas at $70,000, but Californians on the whole have no opportunity but to just suffer from the policies.
Their exchange heated up when the topic of education was raised. Both candidates have children in private schools. Dahle says the state's public schools are failing due to Newsom's policies.
I take offense at our policies and strategies. I mean, what you identified are problems. We're identifying solutions every single day.
Sunday's debate is the only one the candidates will have before the election. Dahle's campaign has raised less than $1 million and has not run any TV ads. He plans to drive a truck across the state and hold rallies up until Election Day. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
The governor recently passed 2 laws that screen police applicants for bias and hate group activities. Critics say the laws target Christians and conservatives. NTD's Arlene Richards reports.
Recently, California Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, signed 2 law enforcement accountability reform bills into law. The laws limit who is eligible to become a peace officer. One bill screens candidates for affiliation with hate groups. The other requires that applicants are evaluated for bias against minority groups and the LGBTQ community. The goal is to prevent people who advocate oppression and violence from getting on the force. A former federal prosecutor thinks those concerns are already being addressed.
Well, I think it's imperative to implement training and procedures to make sure that police officers and others are impartially administering the law and performing their duties. Many of those types of trainings and procedures already exist.
But critics are concerned that the new laws target Christians and conservatives. The Southern Poverty Law Center branded Christians and mainstream conservatives as hate groups. Daniel Greenfield, the Shillman Journalism Fellow at the David Horowitz Freedom Center, told the Daily Signal the bias law is a blank check for viewpoint discrimination, especially since it fails to identify parameters for defining bias. He warned that members of biblically traditional churches would be considered biased against sexual orientation. At a time when crime has become one of the top voter concerns leading up to the midterm election, California isn't in a position to be choosy. Matthew McReynolds, a senior staff attorney at Pacific Justice Institute, told the Daily Signal, in California cities, mass shootings, mass release of criminals back onto the streets, and brazen smash-and-grab robberies have residents living in fear. He said of the new law, it is the perfect leftist tool for canceling more decent, brave, and hardworking public safety officers. The rise in crime isn't only happening in California. Over in New York City, pension fund data revealed that over 3,000 New York police officers have submitted retirement paperwork. Newsmax reports it's expected that more than 4,000 will leave the force this year. Former federal prosecutor Zach Smith said there is an underlying cause.
The rhetoric being pushed by so many on the left is that police officers are bad, that they do not follow the law, that they, harm minority members of their communities.
He said this has been going on for 2.5 years since George Floyd was killed in Minnesota. And now prosecutors in large cities are touting soft-on-crime policies that are encouraging criminals to commit more crimes. Arlene Richards, NTD News, New York.
A judge has ruled that a cake decorator who refused to design a lesbian wedding cake will not have to violate her religious beliefs. The cake artist was facing a possible court order that would have forced her to make the same-sex wedding cake. NTD's Jason Perry hears from the lead attorney in the case.
A California court has ruled in favor of a cake decorator who refused to make a wedding cake for a lesbian couple because she said it would have violated her Christian beliefs. If the judge had not ruled in her favor, she could have been forced to make cakes for same-sex weddings.
I think it's important to keep in mind that the court is not saying that you don't have to serve gay people. That's the way the opposition wants to spin it.
I spoke with Charles Lemandry of the Thomas More Society. He was the lead attorney for Kathy Miller, the cake decorator who refused to make the same-sex wedding cake, citing her faith.
It's only someone who is asked to express a message through their work. So you can't not serve gay people, just like you can't not serve a person of a particular religion or person of a particular race in a restaurant or any place else. You still have to do that. Of course, the law protects that. But when it comes to speaking, you can't compel someone to speak a message they disagree with, and that includes creating an artistic work.
The court held that it was not discriminatory under California's anti-discrimination laws for Miller to follow her conscience. She was entitled to decline because she accommodated same-sex couples with another baker who was happy to make cakes for their weddings. Lemandry said when the news got out, the couple got the wedding cake for free and became celebrities in the gay community.
Our client, on the other hand, received hundreds of very negative phone calls, gay pornography sent to their computers. 3 of their employees quit within the first 2 weeks because of threats. One of their employees was attacked, leaving the business at night after they received threats that they would be attacked. So it's been a horrific experience for our client for 5 years. But she felt as a matter of conscience that she had to see this through to the end, not just for her own rights, but the rights of all Americans.
He went on to say that this case is an example that shows people they need to stand up for their rights. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Another inmate was killed in a prison attack on Friday. This marks the 3rd death in under 2 weeks at 3 separate state prisons.
Officials say 51-year-old Terrence Coleman was attacked by 2 inmates at High Desert State Prison and died of injuries. One of his attackers, 39-year-old William Lutz, was seriously injured and taken to an outside hospital. 40-year-old Timothy Smith is being isolated while authorities investigate the case. All 3 men involved have lengthy criminal histories. Coleman had been serving a life sentence for assault and robbery and was sentenced to an additional 12 years while in prison for voluntary manslaughter. Lutz was serving an 18-year term for assault with a firearm. While imprisoned, he was sentenced twice for a total of 11 years for assault with and making or possessing a deadly weapon. Smith is serving a life sentence for attempted murder. He has previously been convicted of burglary, vehicle theft, and evading a police officer causing death or great bodily injury. 2 other inmates serving life sentences died earlier this month after being attacked, one at Salinas Valley State Prison and the other at California State Prison in Folsom.
A felon has been sentenced to life in prison after shooting an innocent bystander. The victim was killed on Father's Day several years ago.
The Orange County Superior Court sentenced 36-year-old Jose de Jesus Gomez Ochoa on Friday to life in prison without parole. Ochoa was convicted of killing 52-year-old Eliu Armando Gramajo in Santa Ana on June 19, 2016. According to Senior Deputy District Attorney Janine Madera, Gramajo, a father of 3, was working in his food truck on Father's Day when the defendant shot 5 times down a residential street. His target was Vladimir Silva, but instead hit Gramajo. Madera said, quote, Ochoa not only killed the victim, but also endangered every man, woman, and child who lived or happened to be on that street that day. Ochoa first denied that he killed Gramajo, but he later confessed to the crime during jailhouse calls to his mother. Ochoa has 2 prior strike convictions, one for drug dealing in 2011 and the other for possession of a firearm by a felon in 2012.
We're going to take a short break, but here's a look at what we've got for you when we come back. A woman has been accused of using infamous California killers' names in an unemployment fraud scheme. We'll hear how much she took and who she impersonated. A new project is cleaning plastic out of waterways before it gets to the oceans. It's solar powered and already in action in Los Angeles County. We'll hear the details from the designer. And while being an astronaut may be a dream to some, it's hard to achieve for many. But people can still get the zero-G experience in a plane. And that's exactly what our reporter went out and did. That and more on California Today. A woman has been accused of obtaining over $100,000 in fraudulent unemployment benefits. How did she do it? She used the names of infamous killers incarcerated in the state.
Attorney General Rob Bonta alleges a woman who contracted with San Quentin State Prison obtained over $145,000 in fraudulent unemployment benefits. The woman, named Brady Iglesias, may have accessed personal information of certain inmates through her job. One of those men is 49-year-old Scott Peterson, who was convicted of killing his wife and unborn son in their Modesto home on Christmas Eve 2002. The other man is 61-year-old Carrie Stainer, who was convicted of the murders of 4 women near Yosemite National Park. Those murders happened in 1999. Stainer is currently sentenced to death. Iglesias was taken into custody last week after an investigation. It's unclear if she had contact with the men. She is being held on a $20,000 bond. Bonta said the fraudulent claims were filed from April 2020 to September 2021.
Over the weekend, another sideshow broke out in Oakland. Here's how the police responded to the illegal activity.
The city of Oakland continues to see violent and dangerous illegal sideshows throughout our community. The sideshow activity has included reckless and unsafe driving, vandalism, property damage, physical assaults, gunfire, and injuries. Participants in the sideshow threaten the safety of our neighborhoods, business districts, and communities.
According to Allison, after sideshow has ended, the criminal investigations continue. Officers will go to the sideshow participants' homes and tow their vehicle. In an emailed statement to NTD, Oakland police said no injuries were reported and made 1 arrest and towed 2 vehicles. The Oakland police have set up a non-emergency email for information on illegal sideshows, sideshowtips@oaklandca.gov. Last week in nearby Vallejo, police broke up another sideshow. The driver and the passenger were arrested and the vehicle was impounded for 30 days. The owner would need to pay about $2,800 to get their vehicle back. With the plastic debris flowing into the ocean, Los Angeles County has installed a solar-powered machine at one of its most polluted waterways. It's to stop plastic and other trash from reaching the Pacific Ocean.
In October, Los Angeles County installed Trash Interceptor 007 at the mouth of one of its most polluted waterways. It's a solar-powered automated device and installed at Bayona Creek, a heavily polluted waterway that runs between the beachfront communities of Marina del Rey and Playa del Rey before it hits the Pacific Ocean and some of Los Angeles' most famous beaches. The Trash Interceptor is the creation of the Ocean Cleanup, a Dutch nonprofit founded and led by 28-year-old Boyan Slat.
Yeah, so when I was 16 years old, I went scuba diving in Greece, and I looked around me and I just saw more plastic bags than fish. And I just asked myself pretty naively, why can't we just clean this up? And yeah, that ultimately led to me starting the ocean cleanup.
His organization's mission is to, quote, rid the oceans of plastic within the next 10 to 20 years.
And what we found is that just 1% of the world's rivers emit roughly 80% of all the plastic going to the ocean. So if we put devices like this in the mouth of those top 1% of rivers, we believe we can stop the plastic pollution from reaching the oceans.
Standing aboard the 73-foot trash interceptor, Slat explained how the device works.
And the way it works is that we have these long floating barriers that funnel trash to the front of the interceptor, where we have this massive conveyor belt which then extracts the trash from the water before dumping it into several dumpsters to store the trash before offloading.
Each year, somewhere between 30 to 60 tons of trash flow into Ballona Creek as a result of storm runoffs.
And then once the trash has been taken out, powered by the sun, the trash gets distributed amongst these 6 dumpsters. They can hold about 10,000 kilos of plastic, and then once it's full, you can take it out. This is on a barge. You can take it out, you can empty it, just like a vacuum cleaner, put it back, and keep cleaning.
A 2-year pilot project with Los Angeles County, the Trash Interceptor 007 officially began on October 22nd. Stephen Frazier with the Los Angeles County Public Works says this watershed is about 130 square miles of urban area. When it rains, urban debris ends up in the county waterways.
For Los Angeles County, this is like a last line of defense. It's part of many other strategies we have to try to capture waste that ends up in the waterways.
Launched in 2013, the Ocean Cleanup says it hopes to clear 90% of floating plastic from the world's oceans by 2040.
While space for most people can only be experienced with their feet on the ground, a rare few get to feel what it's like beyond the Earth's atmosphere. And one company is offering that feeling of weightlessness to customers. NTD's Jackie Reels went for a ride to experience what zero gravity is like.
Some of us grew up wanting to be an astronaut and wonder what being in space is like. Well, we visited a company who will give you the astronaut experience without going to space. That company is called Zero G. It was founded over 20 years ago by a NASA astronaut. He created a plane for consumers to experience zero gravity. It's the only company certified by the FAA to do so. CEO Matt Goad described the flight's affordability, relatively speaking.
This is an accessible experience. It's not cheap, but it's accessible. To go up on Virgin Galactic, I think it's $500,000, Blue Origin in the millions, obviously to go on SpaceX in the 50+ million. So for about $8,500, people can have the exact same experience that astronauts have in their training program, and astronauts come and do this. So it's not cheap, but I would call it accessible.
Before Zero G came to Long Beach, California, the organization Space Kids Global held a contest to send one lucky kid up on the plane. Goad was there to accompany the contest winner.
My mom told me about a contest, like a writing contest, where the prize was to earn a spot on Zero G, and I thought that would be really cool for my dream job.
Space Kids Global founder and an official astronaut, Sharon Hagel, mentioned Zero G is a great experience to bring to children.
It's the closest thing we have on Earth for you to fly like an astronaut. I would suggest that they stay tuned. We're hoping to make this an annual event, and there'll be other competitions that they can sign up with Space Kids Global.
Zero G travels to different locations around the United States and gives non-astronauts the chance to experience zero gravity. People can book a flight through their website. On the day of the flight, Zero G provides customers with a uniform, socks, merchandise, and live food.
This is my first time. I would love to experience microgravity and practice some yoga maneuvers and some breath work. Absolutely. I think, with long-term space travel, being calm, meditating, I think there's a lot of benefits that we can learn on orbit.
Weightlessness is not just for NASA anymore. With a company like Zero G, one can experience what zero gravity is like. Jackie Rios, NTD News, Long Beach, California.
Now let's check in with NTD's Thomas Christian for today's Sports Roundup.
I'm Thomas Christian, giving you the California Today Sports Roundup. The Padres led Philadelphia 3-2 when JT Realmuto began the 8th with a single off reliever Robert Suarez. Bryce Harper then lined a 2-2 98-mile-per-hour sinker the opposite way into left field seats as another sellout crowd of 45,485 shook Citizens Bank Park. Harper slugged his 5th homer of the postseason, a 2-run blast in the 8th inning that turned the stadium into a madhouse, and the $330 million slugger powered the Phillies past the San Diego Padres 4-3 into the World Series for the first time since 2009. Phillies' Rhys Hoskins also hit a 2-run homer to spark Philadelphia's improbable run to the pennant. Coming into Game 5 down 3-1, the Padres looked good early. Zach Wheeler gave up a Juan Soto solo homer to make it 2-1. The Padres then took a 3-2 lead in a sloppy 7th inning as rain pounded Citizens Bank Park and turned portions of the infield into a mud pit. San Diego starter Yu Darvish allowed 2 runs and 4 hits in 6 innings while striking out 5. Robert Suarez took the loss. San Diego was unable to make anything happen in their final moments and will be watching the World Series from home as a result. The Padres came up about 7 playoff wins shy of hoisting a championship themselves, but their roster looks to continue being a tough customer for the foreseeable future. Phillies 4, Padres 3. Patrick Mahomes passed for 423 yards and 3 touchdowns as Kansas City cruised to a victory over San Francisco at Levi's Stadium. Wide receiver Mecole Hardman scored his 3rd touchdown of the game on a 3-yard run with 10:43 remaining to give the Chiefs a 35-23 lead. Leading 14-13 at halftime, the Chiefs exploded for 30 second-half points, including 2 on a safety, as Mahomes finished the day completing 25 of 34 passes. The Chiefs totaled 529 yards, while the 49ers had 444. Christian McCaffrey, who arrived in the Bay Area on Friday after being acquired in a trade from the Carolina Panthers late on Thursday, made his 49ers debut. At halftime, McCaffrey had 39 rushing yards on 6 carries and 1 reception for 13 yards. However, he finished the day with just 38 yards on 8 attempts and 24 yards on 2 receptions. The 49ers are now in 3rd place in the NFC West with a record of 3-4. Chiefs 44, 49ers 23. Seahawks rookie Kenneth Walker III rushed for a career-high 168 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a 74-yarder with 6:56 remaining, as Seattle defeated Los Angeles in Inglewood, California. Geno Smith completed 20 of 27 passes for 210 yards and 2 touchdowns, both to Marquise Goodwin, as the Seahawks moved into sole possession of 1st place in the NFC West. The loss snapped a Chargers' 3-game winning streak. Justin Herbert was 33 of 51 passing for 293 yards and 2 touchdowns. Austin Eckler was limited to 31 yards on 9 carries, but added 12 catches for 96 yards and scored rushing and receiving touchdowns. The Chargers are now in 2nd place in the AFC West with a record of 4-3. Seahawks 37, Chargers 23. And that's all for the sports.
That's all we've got for you tonight. We'd like you to join us again on California Today every weekday at 8:30 p.m. Make sure to check out our broadcasts on our California Today webpage. You can find it at ntd.com/California-today. You can also find all of our top latest clips there, ready to share with friends and family. Send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or through our email, california.today@ntd.com. I'm Liang Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.